Welcome back, everyone. This is our third week of sheltering at home and bringing the vineyards of the Willamette Valley virtually to you. Boy, that's hard to say. Anyway, hopefully everyone's doing well. This week we're transitioning a little further north up to the McMinnville AVA. Annie will bring up a map and show you the region just to refamiliarize yourself. These are all of the vineyards that Raptor Ridge leases parcels from and has been making vineyard designated Pinots for now 25 years. One of the vineyards that I have had so much pleasure working with since I think vintage 2000 was my first is Meredith Mitchell, and it's out on the western reaches of the McMinnville AVA. We talked earlier about the Van Duzer corridor. So this region, this American viticultural area, is to the north of that break in the Coast Range. So it's part of the catchment that channels afternoon winds into the Willamette Valley. A few years ago, we started working closely with Bill Sweat and Donna Morris of Winderley. They have leased the entire vineyard and was kind enough to join us today live on a sunny Oregon afternoon. Come in, Bill. How you doing out there?
Doing just great. It's so nice to see you all, even if it's from a distance.
Well, we thought you'd show us around Meredith Mitchell. Tell us a little bit more about its soils, its microclimate, and how you approach farming the Pinot Noir wine grapes for us.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So this is a really beautiful site, and as Scott inferred, but maybe didn't say explicitly, he and Annie have been in this vineyard longer than anyone, since about 2000. We started working with the vineyard in about 2010, and then in 2014, when Susan Meredith and Frank Mitchell, the owners of the vineyard, decided they didn't want to be tied to the property quite so closely, they asked us if we would take over the management of the property, and so we've been doing that since then. It's a very interesting property, as Scott was mentioning. It is very much affected by these cold ocean winds from the Van Duzer corridor, and you're probably hearing some of those right now, actually. And it's very common this time of the day to have those winds come through. And it's one of the defining characteristics of the site. It is a site with Jory soils, which you hear a lot about from the Dundee Hills and the Willamette Hills. It's a younger, by younger we mean 14 or 15 million year old volcanic clay loam soil, and very common and popular in Oregon winemaking. These soils are a little bit thinner and have lower water holding capacity than you see in the Dundee Hills, for example. And when you combine that with this wind, it really does create kind of the defining characteristics of this property. If you look at the clusters coming off of Scott and Annie's block here, and compare them to fruit they're getting from other vineyards, in most years these clusters will be much smaller and the berries will be much smaller. You have a much higher skin to juice ratio, so you get incredible concentration of fruit character. But at the same time, because it's a cool site, you get lower alcohols and higher acidity. So it's a really unique combination of traits, which I think define this property.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, Bill, I know it's been farmed with organic and sustainable methods for a number of years, but you've formalized that in your approach, and I think you're applying biodynamic methods to how you farm Meredith Mitchell Vineyard.
We've been farming this property biodynamic since we took over management, and there's every chance we're actually doing a barrel compost spray today. There's every chance a tractor will come by and apply that, but hopefully they'll be far enough away that's not too disruptive. And so biodynamics combines all the same restrictions that you get with organic farming, so we can't use any synthetic characteristics or any synthetic chemistry. And we probably have even more reliance on composting than even organic folks do. We compost this vineyard every year, and it's a cow manure-based compost. we put each of the biodynamic preps in the compost in a certain pattern. And the idea is that that changes the energy within the compost and forms different microbial activity, different energies within the compost as well. And we actually make this compost over at Britton Vineyards. Robert's our consulting winemaker, and we have some piles that we use the biodynamic compost and some where we don't. And when we get those tested, they're very different composts from one another. So it seems like there may be something in this madness. I always describe the applications that we do, the biodynamic preps, as being homeopathic in quantity. And so, for example, we might do a spray with this barrel compost with 14 or 15 grams of the compost and 3 gallons of water per acre, which is almost nothing. When you're doing a sulfur spray, you might spray 50 gallons of water on the vineyard, and you might use a pound or more of sulfur. So these are very kind of trace amounts. And the idea is that these sprays help the vine and the vineyard to come into balance over time. It's not something where you get an immediate hit, but over the course of several years, the vines and the vineyard will be better able to regulate themselves, and we think express what the vineyard is intended to express.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, since you've taken over biodynamic applications, we've noticed the fruit moving away from signatures of drought stress or stress vine syndrome and more toward these really complex primary fruits. But really, I think it'd be great to see what Shannon's experience is with this. She's taken over the winemaking, and I passed the baton to her. Maybe she has seen some changes in MMV over the last 3 years. Shannon?
Yeah, so one thing I do think also is really important to notice or say about MMV is that it is an own-rooted vineyard. So I think that's really cool to note as far as vineyards go. It's definitely its own unique little character. Inevitably, we are at the end of running our marathon when MMV comes in, so everybody's tired and would prefer to put it all 100% whole cluster so we don't have to clean the equipment off. But as Bill was saying, Meredith Mitchell comes in and has the tiniest clusters. I actually will be on the sorting line. I'll be like, no, that's not second crop. That's actually one of the clusters. They're as small as the palm of our hand. They're tiny. They also have really tiny berries too. So with all that being mentioned, we get really dark Pinot Noir coming from Meredith Mitchell. And I've heard Scott mention many times that it's Pinot Noir masking around as a Syrah. And you definitely can see that it's got really concentrated dark, I would call it almost a cran raisin. We actually tasted earlier today, and it really has its own unique signature. Because it has more tannins, we've played around with it in the winery and used different techniques in managing those tannins. So some of that includes doing only overs to the as well, and if we do whole cluster or not. We've done a small amount, but ultimately we're trying not to add too much. And also, as Bill was mentioning, it comes in with an extremely low pH. So it's coming in around 3.1 sometimes, 3.3. And so with our other Pinot Noir vineyards, they're coming in a lot higher. They're more to the 3.3-3.4 range. So we really have to manage in the winery what we're doing with this wine. We don't have to add as much sulfur to it because it's definitely got a lower pH. But it's a fun wine to work with, and it is its own unique character and can definitely handle a lot more oak than some of our other wines.
Bill, back to you. You know, one of the, as Shannon was saying, this is a rooted, very old vineyard. It's one of the crown jewels of the Willamette Valley, but it's got a very unique trellis. Since you're there, maybe you can point your camera on the trunks and the trellising. It's something I call California sprawl.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I was quite remiss in telling you about the provenance of the vineyard. So it was planted in 1988. And Frank and Susan Meredith and Frank Mitchell took this property over in 1990. So for all intents and purposes, they were the only people to farm it before we started farming it. And they were always very careful and gentle with the farming. But yeah, if you look at this, and Scott and Annie have shown you some of their other vineyards, this is a very different trellising system. It's a high wire system. Actually, not a bad trellising system. It's relatively easier to manage. You're not lifting wires all the time. But it does maybe expose the fruit a little bit more to those Van Duzer corridor winds than a typical vertical shoot positioning system might do as well. So it's, I think, an important element of the wines that get created here. For those of you not staring at the trellising system, you can see that there's a pretty beautiful view in the background looking out towards the coast range. And it's just one of the most beautiful spots on the planet to be. And so the more time you can spend up here, the happier you're likely to be.
Happy grapes too.
Yes, we've spent many happy years there. Well, Bill, Shannon, thank you both for your comments. Back to Annie, I think, to talk about what our AVA 3-pack is this week, since we are focused on the McMinnville AVA. What's up?
Yes, so this is a little different from our other 3-pack. So this time we're going to do a vertical, a 3 vintage vertical. And that'll depend on how soon you order, because we have limited quantities of several of the different vintages, but it could span anywhere from 2014 to 2018. And so it's 3 Raptor Ridge Meredith Mitchell Vineyard selections from different vintages. We do also, just to note, have magnums of Meredith Mitchell. So that's a possibility for you as well. But it's a really great price for 3 bottles of Pinot this time, $99. So great bargain. And we just love sharing these verticals from the vineyard and the virtual tours with you. So we hope you take advantage of it.
Thanks, folks. Click on the URL or give us a call, and we'll be happy to get these headed your direction. Bill, thanks for your time. We'll see you soon and give you a hug when we can.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.